Welcome to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. I'm back home. I wish I was somewhere else. It is freezing outside, like about half the country. We're getting hit with another cold snap. You guys all know if you listen to the podcast, I'm not a big fan of winter. Winter sucks because I don't ski anymore. All I do is drive in it, but it's pretty. Yeah. And my fingers were pretty frozen as I scraped ice off the windshield this morning and shoveled the walks. We live in an area where there's a couple of schools nearby, so you have to have the walks shoveled in the morning for the kids during the week. Understandably so, as you should, but wow, was it cold out. In New Orleans, I think it was almost 75, 80 degrees one day I was there, and then I was complaining about the humidity, so there you go. But hope you all had a wonderful Super Bowl. If you really are a member of Broncos country, I can't imagine that you were not thrilled by the results. Let's not kid ourselves. 40-22, come on. It wasn't even pretending to be that close. They were up 34-0 at one point. Once it was 17-0 and Patrick Mahomes threw that second pick right before half, that was game. Everyone's talking about, well, Brady overcame 28-3 and Mahomes will be down 24. Are you watching the game? Stop. The Patriots in that game were actually moving the ball. They had turnovers, but they look functional offensively. The Chiefs had fewer yards offensively than the Eagles had points, 24-23. So stop. They got throttled. No three-peat. Pat Riley's safe. His trademark's safe. All of it's safe. The GOAT debate, and we'll get into all of it, changed. And it feels like the Chiefs are regressing a little bit. They're coming back to the pack a little bit. They showed their vulnerability. We're going to talk about that, but we want to stay local first, and that is I had a chance at the NFL Honors on Thursday when Pat Surtain was honored for his Defensive Player of the Year award, and a chance to catch up with Alex Singleton, the Broncos Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. So I want to get into that interview, and also what this week showed us regarding the Eagles and Chiefs and kind of the ground, pun intended, the Broncos have to cover to get into that elite category, that top 8, that top 4. There's something very specific that needs to happen this offseason if they're going to get to that. But looking forward to Broncos country, embracing the offseason. We got the combine coming up in a couple of weeks. I'll be there. Then you have free agency, first part of March, then the draft. So a lot of big moments coming up in what is a very critical offseason for the Broncos. But we're going to talk some Super Bowl. We're going to talk Alex Singleton, and we're going to talk one thing the Broncos need to do, absent of all those dates, to get them closer to teams like the defending, no longer defending, the champion Eagles and the runner-up Chiefs. We're going to get to all of it after a break. Have you been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggett Injury Law a call. Their motto, with us, it's personal. Known Darby Hoggett forever. We became good friends watching our boys play baseball across the country. Many of Darby's clients become his good friend. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks to you. Again, if you've been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work, give Darby's team a call. That's 1-833 HOGGATT, 1-833-HOGGET, or visit the website at hoggettlaw.com. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. The largest selection on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, folks, welcome back to the Broncos Pod. I am your host, Troy Renck, columnist for the Denver Post. If you're looking to what I wrote last week of the Super Bowl, I had a cool, really enjoyed talking to Samaje Perine, had a feature on him, had a long column on Vic Fangio, how he got his groove back as the oldest defensive coordinator with the youngest defense in the league. Talked to Alan Roach, the PA announcer, from the Avs, but he had worked his 17th Super Bowl. He kind of got that Barry White of all PA voices. And then, of course, there's a story about Saquon Barkley and how it ties in to the Broncos, Terrell Davis, and the current Broncos. So we're going to get into that as well. But had a chance on the red carpet. Not my favorite thing. and I'm going to be honest, where you're yelling out to people and you're surrounded by people asking just the most mundane questions. What is your favorite food? Do you like New Orleans weather? Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, you watch Entertainment Tonight, it's very similar to that, except I'm not dressed to cover Hollywood. I would need to be shot with an Ozempic blow dart to bring my weight down to be on a Hollywood red carpet. So, I mean, those are people like literally you could slip them through the doors of an elevator. That's how thin they are. And so it's a TV event. I'm a print reporter. I did TV for 7 years and I enjoyed it, but it's a different world and yelling at people to stop. So who's your prediction? Who do you think's going to win? It's a little demeaning. I'm not going to lie. But the thing about the red carpet are there always a couple of players who you have connection to. They stop. You get a one-on-one. Alex Singleton was there representing the Broncos. I had a chance to talk to Jared Goff, had a chance to talk to Kurt Warner, and the actor, as you know, in the last pod, if you want to catch up on that, Wendell Pierce. So there is things that are enjoyable about it. The setting for a print reporter is not ideal. I'll just leave it that way. I had to go buy a dress shirt because I wasn't thinking I was going to be credentialed for the red carpet. And I didn't want to wear one of my classic sweatshirt looks now on the red carpet as people are all dolled up. So, but I had a chance to talk to Alex Singleton. I've covered his entire career in Denver. As you can imagine, he was jazzed to be there, not only representing the Broncos as their Walter Payton Man of the Year, and he has been a great advocate for Special Olympics, and his sister, Ashley, just done amazing work in promoting them. But he is a former Eagle. You know, we think of him as Canadian football player, Alex Singleton. He had a stop in Philadelphia. He knew a lot of those players. So he was certainly cheering and rooting for the Eagles. Who wouldn't? If you're any way associated with the Broncos, you want the Chiefs to lose. But he was cheering for the Eagles. But Alex Singleton, you remember, this is a guy who had never missed so much as a practice in the NFL, in 6 years in the NFL. I think it dates all the way back to his time in the Canadian Football League as well, but never missed a practice. Then against Tampa Bay in what was arguably the top two most impressive wins of the season, given the time, the place, you're 0-2, you're going on the game against the contender on the road. Singleton, 8th snap of the game, tears his ACL in his left knee, plays the rest of the game. If you know Singleton, that's part of his mantra. I wrote that in the Denver Post today. He's kind of the cowboy tough, be tough, never quit, play hard, never surrender. I mean, he's got so much of that mentality in him. He plays the rest of the game. I saw him after the game in Tampa. I had no indication he had, tore his ACL, and then he's out for the season. So he gives good perspective about what that was like, having to be a spectator, not only for practice, but games, what he learned from that, and his expectations on when he'll be ready. It's a big offseason for him. I do think he'll be back, but could they ask him to restructure his contract? They're going to probably look to add speed at inside linebacker. Cody Barton had a nice year, basically stepping up for Alex Singleton, but the Broncos still don't have a sideline-to-sideline guy. So if you bring Singleton back at 31 and he looks like he used to, then you're fine. But if he looks like he's slow in his recovery, what could that mean? Do they try to adjust the deal? All those things are up there, but teammates love Singleton, the way he plays, the way who he is in the locker room, and he's very optimistic after watching this team from the sideline after Game 3 on the future of this team. So let's hear from Alex Singleton, again, a guy who averaged 104 solo tackles his first 2 years with the Broncos. Last year cut short. What did Singleton have to say about his recovery from knee surgery? When can we expect to see him back? Let's hear from Alex. How you feeling now?
Good.
Your recovery?
Yeah, good. Started running, so we're moving in the right direction. I'll be good to go by the time season rolls around.
You hoping for training camp, OTA?
Yeah, not a definite for OTAs. I'm going to be participating. I'm going to be there. That'll just kind of be way more doctor stuff, but training camp 100%.
What did you learn? Because you've never been hurt. What did you learn through this?
That seasons are a lot longer than you think they are. And, it was really cool to see everything kind of from an outside view. It wasn't so week to week. I got to see the culture change, got to see how guys, went through the year, as a young team, just kind of observing how they do everything. And it was nice to see that, nice to learn that, as a player. And so to have that going into this year, just how to help the team, not just now from an outside view, but being in and out.
How hard was it to watch?
Miserable. I hated it. I can't wait. That's why I'm really excited for Sunday, because then the next football season I'll be playing.
To have Bo Nix in play now, how much does that help going into a season? You've been in seasons where you didn't know the quarterback was going to be from game to game, year to year.
It's going to be huge. I think, and Bo's been that guy, and it's the hardest league to play, and that's the hardest position to play in this league. So to do what he did this season is special, and so now what he's going to be able to do in his second year, I'm really excited for. A guy that's playing this weekend, like Jalen Hurts, I got to see, do that first year to the second year, and so, yeah, I'm really excited for what Bo's going to do.
To be nominated for Walter Payton, what does that mean?
Coolest thing ever. I think, I said it earlier, I think it's the same thing as being like a team captain on a team, I would say. Your peers vote for you for that, but this is ownership and, people in the community and just recognizing what you do off the field, and I think that's really special.
How special Olympics are you because of your sister to make it even more satisfying?
Yeah.
People are recognizing that?
Oh, 100%. My whole thing is this gives them Special Olympics and my sister and those athletes and anyone with intellectual disabilities just a bigger stage, because I play football and we get this platform, but to be able to share this platform with them is what it's all about. And so, yeah, to be able to sit here and talk about them and show off my sister, her friends, and just all the athletes internationally at this point is really special.
What would it mean to see Pat win Defensive Player of the Year today?
When Pat wins Defensive Player of the Year, it's gonna be really special. He's the second guy in the organization to ever win. As a corner, it's special, it's different, it doesn't happen very often, so it's gonna be really cool. I'm really excited for him, and I can't wait to celebrate with him.
Well, that was Alex Singleton. Again, you can see why he's well-liked by his teammates. He's just authentic. He is who he is. He's had this crazy journey from small school to Canadian Football League to the Eagles. He was originally signed by the Broncos to be a special teamer. He emerges as an everyday guy. Obviously, this is an important offseason for him. At 31, coming off ACL surgery, the benefit is he's never been hurt, so he's not dealing with that. But can he come back stronger and faster? Can he come back and show that he can be effective, and then they pair him with maybe someone that's faster and better in coverage? These are the parts of when the team gets good, you have to make tough decisions. Alex Singleton on paper should be part of the Broncos moving forward, but the one thing you've learned about Sean Payton, I would hope, Broncos country, is he's not a lot of sentimentality. He certainly has a soft spot for guys who played for him with the Saints, the way they know the offense, build the culture, but he's not afraid to move on from guys, whether it was Russell Wilson, whether it was Jerry Jeudy. They considered moving on from Cortland Sutton before they found a common ground there. So these are things we keep an eye on, but it doesn't change the fact of who Alex Singleton is, and you heard that in the last part of that. This guy does amazing work off the field. Well-deserved as their Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for the work he does as an advocate for Special Olympics. So congrats to Alex on being at the Super Bowl, for representing the Broncos, and rooting for a seamless recovery for him to see him back in full strength early in training camp. So we'll keep an eye on that. Well, what did the Chiefs show in that Super Bowl, folks? What did they show that could benefit the Broncos? Did the Eagles write the book on the Chiefs? Did they write a book on the Chiefs? And what is the one thing I watched and found out during the Super Bowl, doing some deep dive into the stats, that has to change for the Broncos if they're going to climb up another rung of this ladder? Because that's what they've talked about, kind of the climb internally. What is one of those things that has to change if they're going to climb up another rung of the ladder in the 2025 season? We're going to talk about all that after a quick break. Are you looking for a thoughtful gift for your significant other that will benefit the both of you? The Tox is coming to Boulder. The Tox technique offers a luxury approach to wellness and body sculpting. Using our proprietary methods, they detoxify the body by stimulating the lymphatic and digestive systems, reducing inflammation and water retention, while sculpting for a leaner appearance. Every session is designed to leave you feeling revitalized, refreshed, and confident in your own skin. It is a one-of-a-kind treatment. Founding memberships are only $49 a month, and they give you deep discounts on treatments, retail, and a VIP swag bag. So what are you waiting for? Call Talks. That's 720-762-4993. That number again, 720-762-4993. Trust me, the person you adore will adore you if you call Talks. Welcome back to the Broncos Pod. I am Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Again, we've had Alex Singleton on the show. If you want to catch up with my Super Bowl coverage, it's all at the Denver Post denverpost.com/sports. And in today's paper, you can find it on my social media feed at Troy Renck on X, Twitter, whatever we call it these days. Sean Keeler and I had our debate of, did the Eagles write the book on how to beat the Chiefs? Sort of. I mean, here's the thing about what the Eagles did. And Vic Fangio was brilliant in this way. They were able to get pressure with a four-man front. That's not easy to do consistently. They blitzed. Some say they didn't blitz at all. I've had J.J. Watt on Twitter saying he thought he saw 3 blitzes. Regardless, it was a low number. The Eagles won at the line of scrimmage. They made Patrick Mahomes miserable. And if you look at a guy's line that's never been more deceiving, what he was like 21 of 32, 257. I mean, that was Blake Bortles stats. You talk about the numbers. Patrick Mahomes through 3 quarters was absolutely brutal. It's one of the worst games I've ever seen him play, probably since he lost that AFC Championship game to Joe Burrow several years ago. But what can the Broncos learn from it? What was the blueprint? Well, you can get pressure up front with 4. It allows you to do things differently in the back end, keep the ball in front of you, don't give up big plays. They gave up 1, but the game was essentially over then. And you got to tackle well. And at times, Denver was one of the best among that. Denver had a really good defense. And let's not kid ourselves. Denver should have beaten the Chiefs in Arrowhead. So it's not like they watched that game on Sunday with the Eagles and said, oh my God, we've never seen anything like this. Denver did similar things, playing keep away from Mahomes, win up front, and win the turnover battle. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff. But what they did to Mahomes was unique because they made him so uncomfortable. He looked so skittish. They were getting him off his spot. And quarterbacks talk about that a lot. It's usually with guys like Peyton Manning, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Eli Manning, the older quarterbacks that they want to step up, get to their spot, and then let it eat with their arm strength or their timing. And Mahomes clearly didn't trust the interior of his line. They moved Tooney out to the outside, and it was clear he was okay out there, but inside, they had no answers. And then as he's trying to help inside, Josh Sweat, he had 2.5 sacks. There should have, if we're being honest, a defensive player should have been MVP of that game. If you're watching that game, with all due respect to Jalen Hurts, and I've compared favorably Bo Nix to Jalen Hurts. I think Nix can be that type of player, that they need to run him more. But with all due respect, if you watch that game, I don't know how you won't walk away and say the defense won that game for the Eagles. I mean, they just absolutely clobbered them. They're up 34-0. A pick 6 by Cooper DeJean. It was just, for me, should have been Cooper DeJean. It should have been Josh Sweat, whatever, or even Vic Fangio, but coaches are not eligible. So, but what can the Broncos learn from that? The ability to get pressure up front. When you're able to get interior pressure from those 2 guys inside, it opens it up for the outside edge guys. If the edge guys are really good, it helps them on the inside. And when those guys are working together, it dramatically helps the coverage and your ability to jump routes, to cheat, to move up, to take chances. And we saw some of this. The Broncos had 63 sacks, folks. And we saw this year. Part of the reason Pat Surtain, when I've talked to him, part of the reason he won Defensive Player of the Year is he was able to take more chances this year because of the pressure the Broncos were getting. But when you talk about a blueprint to beat the Chiefs, it hasn't changed dramatically. Play keep away, win up front, and the other thing you have to have is a legitimate threat in the run game. A legitimate threat in the run game. And people will say, well, Saquon Barkley didn't do anything Super Bowl. Again, it's the threat of Barkley that forces them. They were so determined to stop Barkley it left them vulnerable on the outside. I mean, you had Dotson making plays. I forgot Dotson was still on their team, and I was covering Super Bowl week. But they were so determined to take Barkley away that it opened up stuff on the outside, and it created a crazy amount of run lanes for Jalen Hurts straight up the field. I couldn't believe they didn't adjust and say, you know what, Barkley, we got him. Let's put a spy on Hurts. That was the thing and Andy Reid is a brilliant coach. He's going to go down as the top probably 3 coach of all time. They got absolutely out-coached. I don't know that I've ever seen a game where he's been that out-coached. They played just as badly against Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl the year Tom Brady beat them. But that was easy to point to. Their offensive line had like 4 guys who were all backups playing, and they had no answer for Shaq Barrett and crew. I mean, just no answer. So it was easy to kind of rationalize, well, they're just not equipped to handle it. This game, their line's decent. It's not great, but they never made an adjustment. An Andy Reid team never made an adjustment. Steve Spagnuolo waited way too long to blitz. When they're getting down like 17, like you got to go now. Like this game's ending. And it just felt like they were in quicksand all game and just slow. I mean, no one symbolized that more than Travis Kelce. I mean, he just looked slow, which was, that's concerning if you're a Chiefs fan because of the 2-week break between the AFC Championship and Super Bowl. I would not be surprised if he retires. I would not. Just depending on the offers he gets in broadcasting or Hollywood for movies, he can make more money doing that. I could see him retiring. I mean, he's going to go down as the greatest tight end ever, or if you want Gronk, I mean, it's 1-2, 1A, 1B, whatever you decide it. It would not surprise me if Travis Kelce retires based on the way this season went, based on the way he looked in the Super Bowl, based on the opportunities he's going to have in the media after he retires. And not just his podcast, obviously, which does amazing, but certainly on TV, either in sports or in Hollywood. So, but the one thing, and that's where we're going to finish this podcast today, folks, that you learned on this, did they write the book on the Chiefs? Well, here's what what I'm saying about this. Defensively, again, you got to get pressure. You got to get pressure without having to blitz a lot. And the Broncos secondary, I think they're going to add, and they're going to bring in someone to challenge PJ Locke, but their secondary is good. You look at what Riley Moss did, and I talked to Cooper DeJean. He learned a lot from Riley Moss's teammates with him at Iowa. He was kind of the guy he looked up to. Moss was ahead of him in school, and they both played in a pro-style defense, and you could see that in the way they play the game, that they're not coming from a defense that was really simple and easy. They played in a pro-style, and Iowa's had a really good defense for several years now. But the Broncos have a good secondary, folks. When Riley Moss was healthy, he was legit. When he came back from that knee injury, after he did not look the same, frankly. But he was legit when healthy. Pat Surtain's Defensive Player of the Year. Brandon Jones brought a physicality. PJ Locke's good. Would I be surprised if they don't bring in someone? I would be. I think they're going to bring someone to challenge him, either in the draft or elsewhere. But they have the secondary to do some of the things we saw against Mahomes. But understand, the Chiefs are the Chiefs for the reason. At least the GOAT conversation has halted. It's not over because we don't know what the next 10 years of Mahomes' career are going to look like. But Brady has 7 Super Bowls, folks. And I know Broncos country is not a big fan of Tom Brady. He has 7. Mahomes has 3. The three-peat would have given him a distinction, just like it did with Peyton Manning when he became the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl with 2 different teams. That is something on your resume that they can't take away. Three-peat would have been amazing for him. That's out. And in the 5 Super Bowls, he's been routed twice by both the Bucs and the Eagles. So let's push pause on the GOAT. I'm not saying it's over. Some national people, like the GOAT conversation is over. It's not over because Mahomes probably has 10 more years in his career. He's 29. He's got another decade. So if he wins a couple more, I mean, who knows? But just remember, when you talk GOAT, the three-peat's out. Brady has 7. Do the math. Mahomes has 3. But when you look at the Broncos catching the Chiefs are going to act with urgency. I guarantee they're going to go out and get a left tackle. It's one of the reasons I'm happy the Broncos signed Bowles. I was 100% convinced they were going to go after Bowles this offseason if the Broncos didn't retain him because they need a left tackle. Tooney needs to go back inside, and they're going to have to go get a big-time receiver. Asking Mahomes to make chicken salad out of you-know-what, it's just when you get in these bigger games, DeAndre Hopkins is a nice player. He's at the end of his career. Xavier Worthy's a nice player. He's not a number one. Juju Schuster-Smith got cut by the Patriots. He's not a one. They're going to go get a one, whether they're in play for T. Higgins, whether they trade for a Cooper Kupp, whether they trade. There's no way they're going to watch that Super Bowl film and not react at left tackle and receiver. So knowing all that, what is the one area the Broncos must address? We've talked so much about tight end, and that's certainly one of them. But if you look at last year, and Sean Drotar and I have talked about this a lot when I do my appearances with he and Nate Lundy on Mile High Sports, Mondays and Fridays, usually around noon. So today that's usually where you can catch me. But we talked a lot about the run game. And when I did a deep dive into the stats, folks, it was alarming. Sean Payton typically has two backs. He has a wandering eye when it comes to running backs. It frustrates the running backs. Usually they're still able to be effective because of the touchdowns in the red zone. So the yardage total isn't great, but you're just still getting enough protection. And then sometimes he had even 3 when he had like Pierre Thomas or Taysom Hill. Did you know last year, Javonte Williams at 513 yards, that's the lowest total ever for Sean Payton for a leading rusher, ever in his career at 17 years. So it wasn't just me saying they're not getting enough from the run game. I mean, we all love Javonte Williams. Trust me, it's not personal. It's business. Javonte Williams was arguably the least effective starting running back in the league last year. And the only one who seemed like he didn't know it was Sean Payton, because he was in love with the fact that he was good in pass pro. But they needed him in pass pro because he was getting 1 and 2 yards on first and second down. It's crazy. So it's not going to be Javonte Williams. And so maybe it's Audric Estime. It's hard to love the confidence in that statement, the fact that he was a healthy scratch at Buffalo. I know what they thought of Estime before the season, so I'm not ready to give up on him. But, I mean, obviously there's doubts. If the guy can't even get on the field, he's a healthy scratch in the biggest game of the season. Jaleel McLaughlin is a change of pace back, folks. He's not an every down back. He's just not. He's not a between the tackles guy. He doesn't break a lot of tackles. That's the issue that really hurt and undermined Javonte Williams, is he didn't either. That hurt him. But when you look at, then you got Tyler Bidet. I mean, could he be it? Maybe, probably not. You need a running back, whether it's Hampton, whether it's Caleb Johnson, the kid from Iowa. You've got to get a running back. They had a leading rusher, folks, 513 yards. 5 quarterbacks had more yards rushing last year than Javonte Williams. 5. So while I believe Sean Payton knows who Bo Nix is now, and that there's a very realistic chance, if you call the game the right way, he could have between 500 and 600 yards rushing, you got to get a back you trust. You could have 2 backs, not 3, but you could have 2. The third one, if he's in there, he's a passing back. He's a third down guy, dump down back that obviously has to still be good in pass pro. But you got to have 2. There's only been 2 guys have 1,000 yards under Sean Payton in his career. Ingram did it twice. I mean, he just doesn't rely on one back. But if they're going to go forward, would you watch what Saquon Barkley did? The threat of Saquon Barkley completely changed how the Chiefs had to defend him. And when you see how the Broncos can make ground on the Chiefs, it's that way. Being more balanced offensively. Sean Payton buying a little bit more into the run game. And he's had years where he loved the run game, especially in the red zone. But there's got to be balance, and Bo Nix has to be part of it. But you can't have a lead back at 513 yards. At minimum, whoever leads him in rushing next year needs to be close to 1,000. We're not asking a lot here, folks. We're not asking a lot. You're talking about like 58 yards a game in a 17-game season. It's not something you blare the trumpets for. But between 900 and 1,000 as a leading rusher, whether that's a Hampton, whether that's the kid Caleb Johnson from Iowa, but pick a guy. He's got to be the lead back. Maybe it's Estime. Again, he's going to have to prove it now once I saw him being active against Buffalo. But you got to be better in the run game. You can't have a wandering eye. You can't have 3-4 guys involved. And, Blake Watson's active. Well, I got to get him 6 or 7 touches. No, you don't. You got to have one guy that's getting 20 to 25 touches, another guy that's getting 8 to 12, and then that third guy, some weeks he's more involved, some weeks he's not because it's a matchup league. But one back has to emerge where he's got a real shot at 1,000 and Bo Nix has 500 to 600. That's when you can beat the Chiefs because you're balanced. They have to defend it. They have to prepare for it. And then when they get behind, there's an urgency and a little bit of a panic there because you've now controlled the clock. You're winning time of possession. And when you're better in the run game, you get better in the red zone. Because if you're real past the pin it in the red zone, the only way you're winning that way is if you got stars in the receiver room. Broncos don't. Cortland Sutton's good, but they don't have Jefferson. They don't have Chase. They don't have A.J. Brown. Like, they don't have those kind of guys. And we'll talk about more about that position moving later into the offseason. But what the Chiefs showed is that you got to pressure Mahomes. You got to make him uncomfortable. Preferably it comes from up front, not through the blitz. And if you're able to do that, you have a chance to win the turnover battle. And defensively, they're really good. They pick and choose blitzes at a great time, but it's harder for them to do that with Spagnuolo if you're able to run the ball. And the Broncos were not last year. They were a very mid team when it came to running the ball and yards per carry. When it comes to yards per game, they didn't have one guy where you felt like that guy could beat us. That has to change if the Broncos are going to climb that ladder one more run. But it's an encouraging offseason that the Chiefs showed some vulnerability. The Broncos have a clear pathway to get better by adding a running back, by adding the tight end, likely going to add an inside linebacker, likely going to add a safety. But you got to be good up front. If you lose DJ Jones, and this is part of that equation, you got to identify someone in free agency or the draft because that's where you can win. You win at the line of scrimmage with pressure and running the ball. That is how you take that next step up the ladder. Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. Stay warm out there. It is freaking cold. It's supposed to be cold through the week. Hope to have another pod drop on Thursday. So I cannot thank you enough, Broncos country, for your support of this pod. It means the world. I could not do it without Big A behind the screen. He is the man producing it. Twice a week. We'll have twice a week in the off season, and I'll be at the combine. I told you at the end of the week. Cannot do this pod without Nate Lundy and his support at Mile High Sports. Darby Hoggett from Hoggett Injury Law Talks, the new place going up in Boulder. Keep an eye on that. Listen back for the number on that. And Bet Online, the new sponsor. They make all this possible. Broncos country, I do this pod for you. Happiness that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.